Hello everyone, my name is Julia. I am a certified Montessori teacher for the elementary age group, that is lower and upper elementary, consisting of grades 1 through 6. I also have experience in a Montessori middle school, and currently I am teaching in an international baccalaureate program, high school level, which, if you're ever curious about programs that mesh quite nicely with a Montessori philosophy, but if you don't have a Montessori high school, I highly recommend you check out an IB program. There are schools located all around the world, and I find a lot of the inquiry-based learning that the curriculum is based on is quite similar. Super side note right there. I'm also a mom of a now 2-year-old named Isaac and a stepmom to a 9-year-old named Asher. Today's video was going to be about math and geometry and how I've started giving math presentations to my toddler and some of the practice that I have been doing with Asher. However, 2 of the Montessori YouTubers that I follow just posted videos about Montessori math and math materials in the past few weeks. So I'm just going to talk about geometry today, which is fine because geometry is the most underrated of all of the subjects, not only in traditional school, but also in Montessori curriculum as well. And it was basically one of the first things that I got really excited about with Montessori. So today is going to be all about Montessori geometry, how you can start implementing or presenting Montessori concepts at home with your child in all the age groups, and some of the materials or types of materials that I would recommend that you have regardless of whether your child is homeschooled or not. If you are new here, I would love for you to hit that subscribe button and also to click that notification bell and leave a comment if you have anything you'd like to see in the future, or if you have any questions. Geometry is probably the area in which you see the clearest progression in terms of a Montessori subject from concrete concepts, or from learning a concept concretely to learning it abstractly. It is also the subject where I find the materials get carried over the longest through all the grades, from preschool to grade 6, and even into middle school we were using some of the elementary materials to hone in concepts as well. So I'm going to go through sort of the age group chunks and kind of places that you can start or things that you can provide for your child, and also a mishmash of what I've been doing here and there. So Montessori geometry allows for whoever is learning about it or practicing it to really fine-tune those super specific terminologies. Montessori is very particular about the order of terminologies, how you write them and how you say them. So a triangle is not just a triangle. There are 7 triangles that can be found in all of reality, and let's break down those 7 triangles by angles, and let's break down those 7 triangles by sides, and then let's put all of those terminologies together so that when you see a triangle, you know exactly, specifically what kind of triangle that is. Montessori geometry is also full of art and full of precision and of building, and the hands-on materials or the hands-on activities that you can do or present to your child are so engaging and so fine-tuned. Geometry really can be incorporated into all the other subjects, into botany, into zoology, into language, into math, and it really is a foundational subject that, from my experience in public schools a lot this year, I have seen, and even with my older stepson being in a public school his entire life, it's really just glossed over. As long as kids know that a triangle has 3 sides, a rectangle has 4 sides, 2 of which are longer than the other 2, then that's good enough. And there's really so much more to that. You will see students who attend a Montessori school know things like the Pythagorean theorem by grade 6, know things like how to calculate the internal angles of any triangle by grade 4. These are skills that are not typically, at least in this part of the world, they're not typically taught until grade 6 or grade 7. And oftentimes students find it too much of an abstract concept to even really fully understand. So they just memorize the formula, do what they need to do, and then it's forgotten. But if you ever come across, or if you ever heard a child look at a shape outside and say like, oh, that ladder leaning against the pole is making a right-angled scalene triangle, then you know that they have had that concrete foundational learning, which you can easily provide for them at home, no matter what kind of school your child attends, or if they're homeschooled, or if they even attend a Montessori school in general. And it's fun for you to learn as well, and for you to do. So from age 0 to 3, there's not going to be that much understanding of the different types of shapes. Perhaps your child will be able to recognize circles and triangles and squares from doing some of those shape puzzles that you will see so often on a shelf setting. Here are just a few of the shape puzzles that I've been providing for Isaac since he's been born. And at first, all your child will simply do is interact with it and problem solve on their own which size fits in which inset, and the progression from there. My guy, I think, is a little out of the ordinary in that, kind of on his own, about 6 months ago, he basically came up to me one day and went, triangle, circle, square. So he was doing it with his fingers. I don't know where he picked it up from, but he understood. And then he started pointing out all the shapes in the environment that he saw. Or when we're driving, he will find things, or on patterns on his clothing or on my clothing. He will point out if it's a circle or square or triangle. And those are really the 3 that he knows right now. So from that, I have just been providing opportunities for him to distinguish between those shapes. He has mastered all the shape sorters you could possibly think of. So at this time, in terms of what his interests are and what he's able to do, he's kind of I'm starting to introduce other shapes as well, just to have a bit more of a variety. I'm starting to give some puzzles with other shapes in them. For example, the puzzle that I have right now is I just have they're double-sided Melissa and Doug wooden puzzles with shapes to go along with them. So for example, an oval is a new shape that I showed him before. When I showed him an oval in terms of this shape, I didn't just give it to him. I showed him this oval next to a circle, and I said to the circle, I said, this is a circle, and we traced the circle, and I let him hold the circle in his hand. And then I gave this to him, and I said, this is an oval, and I traced it around, and then I put this in his hand and let him feel the difference. And that was kind of all I needed to do with him. It doesn't need to be a super formal sit-down presentation, especially at this age. So from maybe not even 3, maybe sometimes 2.5 is usually children will enter some sort of sensitive period with math and geometry. When you start to notice your child is interested in shapes and is starting to name the shapes and is recognizing the shapes around you, then you can start to provide lots of opportunities to use and mix those different shapes. And it can be something quite simple like the puzzle that I just showed you, or it can be free play with blocks. And I have a massive bucket of free play blocks right now. And as we play, I will ask him if he recognizes a shape or what he knows. And just handling the different shapes is going to really solidify the feel and the look and internalize the concept of what they're called. So that eventually when we do go into more of the 2-dimensional shape building, there'll be that muscle memory of what the shape feels like and what the shape should look like as well. So at this time, all you're doing is you're allowing your child to interact with the shapes and to see how they fit into insets or how they fit into other spaces together or separately. This is where a lot of puzzles come into play. This is where a lot of the open-ended toys come into play. and you're not necessarily sitting down for those preschool level presentations yet. Once your child does reach preschool level and when they're showing an interest in wanting to explore more with shapes, then you can start with some of the other presentations. And if you're at home and your child attends a school or is attending a Montessori school, I would not necessarily recommend purchasing specific Montessori materials. However, if you are looking to invest in any of the materials, I would highly suggest you invest in the geometry cabinet. So it has all the different drawers which you can pull out and you do them one by one at first. And the constructive triangles are the two materials that I would recommend be on the top of your list if you are going to provide any of the geometry materials for your child at home, simply because these provide the most progressions and the most things to do. So it's kind of the most bang for your buck. They are pricey materials. So at the preschool age, your child will be able to sit down for more of those presentations. If you have a box of sticks, or there are some really cool DIYs that I've seen online to make your own sort of box of sticks in order to actually build the triangles and the different shapes. I keep saying triangles, but I really mean all the shapes, all the polygons. For example, when you want to present the triangles by sides and for your child to be able to name a triangle by side, so you'd first show it with a geometry cabinet and then you would have them build it with the box of sticks so that they can then build them, and you can have nomenclature cards with them. I've seen lots of really cool DIY puzzles as well using popsicle sticks, where you just trace the outline of a popsicle stick into whichever format and shape you would like, and you provide it as sort of a loose end problem solving material for your child at home. I have done that a little bit with Isaac, except he kind of ruined my set, so I think I need to reinforce it a little bit. And by the time your child reaches elementary aged, if you have been starting Montessori geometry or any geometry with them before, they will likely be able to at least name a couple of different triangles, a couple of different polygons. They might be able to recognize a quadrilateral or a common quadrilateral as opposed to a square, or the difference between a square and a rectangle. They might even be able to know what a hexagon versus an octagon looks like. And that's just depending on the child and what piques their interest and what they gravitate towards. But as your child enters grade school, the same materials would still apply. So the geometry cabinet and the box of sticks and the constructive triangles are those three primary geometry materials. And as your child is able to master and recognize naming all the shapes by their sides only, then you can start talking about the angles. And at this point at home, if your child is ready for any angle naming, there are some fun things that you can do. Simply, you can go out for a walk and take a measuring tape or take a ruler or take a protractor and go and measure and label things that you see in and around. You can provide shapes for them to cut out, or even doing things like origami is very geometry based. So getting those precise folds, making sure you have those correct shapes in order to make the end result that you would like. There are all sorts of things that you can do at home once your child reaches grade school. There are tons of Montessori presentations on measuring internal angles, measuring external angles, using a protractor, different types of lines, like a straight line, a curved line, a parallel line. Some of these will be taught in preschool. If not, they will be retaught in elementary school, just to see if the child has internalized that concept in order to move on. We're talking about perpendicular lines, concurrent lines, all these different things, and all of them have separate presentations in which the child is drawing it out in their notebook, so that by the time your child reaches grade 6, they perhaps have started on the Pythagorean theorem. And in grade 7 and 8, which is sort of the middle years, there's a recognition that because the preteen brain is reformatting and executive functioning or memory is not necessarily something that is a strong point for children of that age group, that when those concepts are reviewed, so when you're reviewing polygons and parallel and perpendicular lines, that the review, when it is reviewed abstractly, can be just reviewed abstractly like that because the concrete has already been done. And so going from the concrete to the abstract in geometry looks very much like going from the materials to using less of the material and more of a ruler and nomenclature cards and scissors to cut out paper and glue things on, to being able to see a triangle on a sheet of paper and you need to calculate the missing internal angle, and you can just do that on your own with your calculator. That's that for geometry. Geometry is beautiful. Don't forget about geometry, please. If you are wanting to use Montessori curriculum to add on to your child's learning, use geometry because it is a foundation for everything, and the sciences rely on geometry and art relies on geometry, but it is so easily left to the side because the presentations can seem so disjointed. But if you tie it in with other subjects, then you will always find areas to use it. Are you going down to the beach and building a fort? Well, which angles and which shapes and structures are going to be the strongest? Are you going into a spaghetti bridge building contest? What shapes are you going to use to build that spaghetti bridge to be the strongest? And at home, just expose your child to the shapes. That's it. If you're going to start anywhere, just expose your child to the shapes. Play with them and talk it out. Use the vocabulary, use the terminology, and they'll pick it up. They'll absorb it. Especially with a younger child, right? They have that ability to absorb it and retain it, and then build off of it. That's geometry for you guys, and I hope you found some place where you could start if you wanted a place to start. Honestly, it can be really simple. You don't have to spend very much money, and you guys are continuing to stay safe and that you guys are staying sane, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.